to counter matchup in the bottom lane at all, but it's top lane we're going, it's not the Maokai.
And of course, we awarded Ignar Player of the Series last week. He was an absolute powerhouse, making huge impact on every champion he played. Of course, one of those games was Malzahar, so not quite as impressive as we'd often like to see. But the Thresh, of course, was incredibly impressive, leading some quick, early first bloods with some aggressive plays, kind of reminding us of the Season 3 glory days of Thresh, the flash plays, the setup, the aggressive setups into the bottom lane. Misfits now contemplating their last pick, but Roccat already have a pretty strong composition locked in here with the Poppy on the board.
Yeah, there's a couple of options here for Misfits. They go with the global presence rather than the Maokai, opting for Shen. Of course, it is a fairly straightforward, and that's an instant lock-in Bard to round out the composition for Roccat. We haven't seen with its Bard all that much, so interested to see how that can go. It worked very well for Hylissang in our first series of today. Roccat running a fairly unorthodox composition for Europe specifically. Seen a lot of Corki and Elise in Korea, in LCK. Seen a lot of Poppy elsewhere as well. So I'm excited to see with Roccat now they're building a little bit different of a composition to what we're used to seeing, whereas Misfits opting more towards what we're used to.
And it's going to be interesting to see where the priority is from Kakao in the jungle, of course. Notably very active in the early game. You saw in his first couple games, going down to that bottom lane to gank, kind of making his presence known everywhere. But this Kha'Zix sits ahead. He's got a Shen to back him up in the fights as well, and that's going to be incredibly terrifying. But on the opposite side, of course, Maxlor with the Elise. This is a champion known for her early impact, and Maxlor, kind of the big guy we expect to step up and carry this team, to get this team ahead, to get this snowball rolling in the early game.
Very flashy bot lane matchups on this one. Thresh versus Bard. Been a while since we've really had that. Not too many Thresh players left in the EU LCS and hasn't been in the meta for a while. So this could be an explosive bot lane. High damage when you look at that Varus pick. I want to see how that can kind of work out against the Misfits.
Well, if you think it's going to work out well, you can tweet out hashtag ROCWin on Twitter. Or if you think Misfits will come out on top with the power of Kakao and Ignar, honestly, hashtag MSFWin. Although who knows who could step up to carry on either of these lineups. Two very young teams going head-to-head as we get pumped and ready to go into game one here. Misfits versus Roccat.
We're pumped, but we're not ready yet.
And it's paused. All right. So, League of Legends.
Yeah, so with League of Legends, a lot of it in the last year or so has been focused towards top lane. And I feel like if Maxlor wants to go up towards the top lane, that Elise Poppy setup that we may very well see.
That's true.
Alphari in the early levels won't be able to do much in this 1 versus 1. So if a jungler joins in, that's really when things will turn on their head. And that's one of the unique things that we haven't really seen too much in Europe recently, the Elise pick that LCK have been using, utilizing it against exploitable matchups, top and mid, and going there trying to camp for the lane. So I'm wondering where Maxlor's focus is going to be in this matchup. One thing we're going to have to watch.
Absolutely. Now, the interesting thing for me, of course, is that Elise feels like such a high-risk pick to me,
right,
especially after Maxlor had, honestly, 2 incredibly rough games. We're going to have to see how he fares on this pick, if this is the comfort pick to him, because we are getting into game. As we've already mentioned, it might just be all about the early game if one of these junglers can get ahead. Misfits versus Roccat. If you're just joining us, it's game 1.
And you're certainly right about the Elise. Like, it's not quite as safe a pick as the Rek'Sais that we've seen, as the, I guess Rengar's not particularly safe pick, but it's just so strong that it does very well. So for Maxlor, he's going to end up, hoping Kakao at some certain stages face checks outside of the Misfits vision control, where you land the cocoon, the spider, the bite, everything, and by the time you've finished your damage, Kakao wants none of it. He wants to get back out of the fight. And those are the areas where Elise can benefit the most from that. So Misfits, if they kind of wade into Roccat territory, could end up getting punished by the Elise.
Very true, and of course the one thing we do have to consider is that Elise incredibly frustrating for Kha'Zix players because the Spiderlings stop her from being isolated if he can't kill those quickly. So without a Tiamat, without a few levels in the Void Spikes there, he may not be able to get that extra damage. And even without the Cocoon, may not be able to come out on top. This is honestly a matchup we haven't seen too much in EU LCS yet.
There's also the added dynamic of the mid lane matchup. Always is important when Elise is on the Rift, because if you're playing a lower mobility mid laner and you don't have cleanse, well, you're probably going to get ganked a couple of times. And look what we've got. We've got a Syndra, fairly low mobility, running Ghost. The Ghost is used to try and dodge a lot of the offensive capabilities of the Corki. Kind of move past the Phosphorus Bomb and look for an all-in. well, no cleanse means potentially Maxwell has an opening mid lane as this game goes later. So a couple of unique areas that Elise will have over some other junglers that Roccat could use to their advantage.
Of course, the early game, as we saw from Roccat in their first series, honestly, pretty comfortable. They looked okay so far. They had a few hiccups here and there trying to execute on their composition, but overall looked pretty solid. And thus far, of course, we're 2 minutes in. Nothing crazy happening quite yet. Still waiting for those junglers to finish their clears. Still waiting to see who will come out on top in this early laning phase.
And Ignat going to roam up towards the blue buff just to get confirmation on where Maxlor is. Of course, with the way Hyun and Wadid were in lane, Ignat has that feeling that being on the bottom side after starting top side, this is the timing where Elise would normally be on blue. So Hyun, big damage down from Hansama with that 4th shot. The information is there on where Maxlor is. How will they utilize that? You can see Corki playing over towards the bottom side of the rift as well.
Oh, Hook is going to connect. Snare goes in. Yarnan might go down here. Ignite's burning. Hansama, dancing grenade as he walks away with that kill.
That shouldn't happen. Like, that should not happen level 2.
We were so excited. I was so excited, maybe, to talk about the junglers. Maxwell versus Kakao. Hype. European versus, you know, old school Korean jungler coming back. But it's the bottom lane. We got to respect those Thresh players, man. That was a flawless hook read.
Yeah, it was great from Hansama, but 2v2 kills are so few and far between. And I guess it's one of these things. Maybe Thresh has been out of the meta for a while, so people forget, okay, I can't really play around out in the open on these lower mobility AD carries. Varus has to burn flash to get away from it and still ends up dying because you're against Hansama, who has his own crowd control, high damage, and the ignite. Oh, just Roccat should not have been in the position to get caught by that. And unfortunately, here goes Maxwell top. This is what we were talking about.
Yeah, maybe trying to make some small moves to get back, not just let this early snowball go unchecked, but Maxlor going to have to back off. The single ward from Alfari will give away the approach from Maxlor, and definitely not the start that Roccat wanted whatsoever. And this terrifying thing is when we look at the summoner spells, Hansama and Ignar both still have flash. So if Kakao wants to take a trip to that bottom lane, and it looks like he does, this could be trouble for Roccat.
And not only that, even if this play goes awry, as they did just get caught out by Wadid's scrying plant, that ignite is coming off faster than the flash from cooldown, so there'll be another opportunity if they end up getting caught out.
Has to be frustrating for the Roccat bottom lane, maybe hoping to get some push priority here, but not going to find it in the end. Hansama and Ignar well in control, but first do not succeed. Try again. Kakao make his way back to the bottom lane. Flash forward. This is the classic. Moving forward, going in, knocked down, knocked out as Hansama picks up another one.
Ignar's Thresh is pretty damn good. If you didn't watch Challenger last split, we're seeing it again.
It's just flashbacks to the glory days of Thresh. The flash play at the time was considered the unstoppable, undeniable gank. And when Yarnan doesn't have a flash, you can see how easy it is to pull off.
And, oh, beautiful. Lantern comes out. Hyun too far forward to react. Locked down. Hansama for a second kill. This play snowballs from the first one in multiple ways. They picked up a control ward to put in the enemy brush just to make sure if they had to move forward in that kind of position, you could control the bush. They know there was no ward in the bush behind them, so Kakao slipped into the lane unseen, undetected, and there was a lot of threat whether it was seen or not, because Kakao comes in, helps them to pick up that kill.
And you can see Kakao, very strong jungler overall, huge team jungle proximity, second in the league overall. That's the time he spends near his lanes, ready to gank at any moment. And in this game, not even giving anything up for it.
You know what Kakao doesn't do so much though? Ward.
Very true.
And on Kha'Zix, I would feel the same as well. He's gone for the Skirmisher's Saber. A couple of times we have started to see the Tracker's Knife come back out. Typically less so on champions like Kha'Zix, but you know, prioritizing vision control. We'll see whether Kakao does that as he changes champions up. But certainly Misfits haven't been relying on jungle for warding presence.
And we put pressure on Maxlor to find an advantage here. It looks like he's trying to find one now. Hansama potentially in trouble. Lantern goes in. Maxlor has Cocoon. Does connect on Hansama. No follow-up here whatsoever. No knowledge, I guess, of the COD. They have vision on. I don't know exactly what Roccat were planning there.
This bot side of the map is just looking way too easy for Misfits right now. And I don't say that in disrespect. I mean, you see Hansama looks like he's caught out. Oh, the Lantern's there. Don't expend any summoners to get out.
Again.
Again.
The CC just keeps coming. Ignite's going down. Wadid is now set to fall heal. Shrines moving forward. Ooh, Caretaker going to bring him back. Maxlor.
Oh, he didn't hit it.
No response and no follow-up. I mean, at this point, is it a point-and-click ability? Is it just guaranteed to hit every time? Ignar is popping off in this bottom lane. We wanted to see how Maxwell would do. How it would be Maxwell versus Cacao. But it's Ignar versus the world right now, and he is taking on everyone.
Oh, and Hyanan and Wadid just can't really do too much. Cacao's been spotted out on this. They've conceded tower presence at 7 minutes in the game. Very rarely do you say that a player is already making a statement for player of the series 6 minutes into game 1, but Ignar's doing it again.
And look at this, Power of Evil already making his way down to the bottom lane. Corki's here as well, but it might be too little too late. Misfits are poised to take this tower. A massive lead in their favor, 2,000 gold, 7 minutes into the game. 2-0 for Hans Sama as well. Things could not look better for this team.
And coming into this, we were looking at, okay, if Roccat can maybe get top or mid rolling, this would be great. It's a 2 versus 2 non-jungle pressure mistake that Roccat end up making that tilts it all the way in favor of Misfits, and Misfits have relentlessly tried to capitalize on it in the bottom side. So for as well as Betsy or Faxi have been holding up in their respective lanes, they've had no impact on this game so far. And if Roccat want to hold on, they have to somehow get one of these other lanes rolling.
Oh, Betsy takes a bit of poke here, but you're absolutely right. Seems like it's just going to be back and forth, a little bit of traded damage here. Neither one really needs to all in. Well, Power of Evil doesn't, that's for sure, because the rest of his team is winning across the map. He can play safe, he can play careful, but there's so much more pressure on the top side of the Roccat map to make a difference here, because bot lane is already down in the dumps, and they have to find a way back in.
Watch what Misfits are looking to set up on the map here. They're already drifting towards mid lane. Corki is not in a position where he can actually sustain any kind of damage going forward in this current build. He's gone Hex Drinker first. Typically, Corki is post-Trinity Force on the way to Infinity Edge, that he starts having that massive amount of damage as it converts into magic. But at this point, Betsy doesn't have enough. He needs time to farm. He needs extra time in this game. And if Misfits keep drifting towards mid and pushing him away, looking for damage on that tower, he's quite frankly not going to get the time.
I think you're totally correct here. The Hex Drinker, of course, makes sense in the laning phase, but
yeah,
you can't be worried about 1v1ing the Syndra. You need to be making impact elsewhere, and pretty much Syndra's the only person that's going to help against. Rockat's doing their best to get this proactive vision down to make something happen, and they're doing something with their bottom lane, even if they're falling behind, because Hjarnen's now on the top side, Wadid is on the top side, and they're setting their sights on that tower.
This is a reaction, as you said, to being so far behind bot side that they're saying, okay, we can't be in this matchup. We need to get something somewhere on the map. But it's not even working that fast. You see that Misfits, while they were technically behind the play, they're arriving to the lane in plenty of time to be able to defend a tower. So it's not really accounting to objective wins. All they get from it is a blue buff. They got a little bit of farm now onto Hjarnen. And Roccat, they still have to play carefully around this bottom lane. Maxwell basically babysitting them up in this top lane, trying to sneak in a gank here as Hans Sama comes into the lane. They already have a ward down. If Hans Sama plays this dangerously, it could be a mistake. But so many pings topside from the blue team means Misfits have an idea of where he is.
You see how far in Foxy. Not a whole lot is going to happen here. You have to keep your eyes on Ignar and Hans Sama. Cacao was trying to be sneaky. Was trying to use Hans Sama as a nice piece of bait there. But, of course, a smart ward from Roccat. Going to deny any action on the top side as Maxwell goes back to clearing out his jungle. Then 10 minutes in, 2.5k gold lead for Misfits. A Cloud Drake as well. And really, we're just waiting for Roccat to make something happen here. And at this point, maybe even waiting for Misfits to extend their lead.
And this is the type of player Alphari is. As soon as he knows he has this freedom, they know Maxwell's topside, so Alphari goes, okay, I can be as aggressive as I want on any champion. Goes forward, trades against Faxi. We saw this time and time again in Challenger. Alphari just always trying to dominate any matchup 1 versus 1. I'm excited to see what this guy can do on more damage-focused picks. Shen into Poppy, maybe not so much. But
he got his Rumble games. Yeah. Now he's got to take one for the team and play tanks.
Show me a Camille or Fiora. Give me something that's flashy and Alphari can overextend
to be fair, Misfits and Roccat were both happy to show you bans.
That's
but
true.
Definitely
that's
not going to show you the champions there. It's a rough life right now inside of Roccat. Power Evil tend to continue clearing waves. Betsy farming up now, has the Sheen. So working towards that Trinity Force, all too important for the Corki mid.
I like what the Hex Drinker did. alongside the exhaust, Betsy basically says, you can never kill me. You're not getting through enough of my health to put yourself in a position where I die. But it does slow the damage, as we discussed before. So theoretically, Betsy is still okay. It's not a massive problem for the team. Just certainly gets him through the lane a bit healthier. And you can see now that Betsy is post 6. He has a lot of poke, a lot of wave clear, and can shove in this Syndra and just keep her in lane for a little longer than most lane opponents can.
And, you know, we kind of expected Power of Evil to be a weaker point on this team, very vulnerable to early ganks. Corki, of course, having the damage, Elise having the CC, but because bottom lane fell apart, it feels like Power of Evil has just been free to continue this laning phase, and now he's getting a little bit of support here as well.
Getting a bit of support, but here, look, Max Law's here too.
Oh, all goes in, Cocoon goes down, Shen might be coming in as well, does grab the Lantern, Tempered Fate goes down, Wadid, they're looking for the setup. Not gonna find anything yet. Alvari doesn't get the taunt flash. Good reaction coming in the end. Misfits kind of playing on the razor's edge there, very close to losing Power of Evil in that exchange.
Ignar again, though, the savior of the day, comes in with the Lantern. It's enough for Power of Evil to get himself away. Good flash by Maxlaw. Looked like he was already preempting the taunt coming through from Alfari. Matches it flash for flash. So ends up not losing anything in that exchange really for Roccat. Some summoners were blown. You can see the exhaust was used by Betsy to absorb all of that damage that we were discussing. But no kills, ultimately. So Misfits hold the lead that they had. Cacao is coming top, though, with Ignar. Oh, Kjarnan.
Kjarnan. Wadid is there. There's no Tempered Fate to save him. Nothing to buy time. Nice sidestep on the hook, though. Starting to learn. Waiting. Maybe the snare's going to come in. Hans Sama decides not to commit there. Misfits just blowing a little bit of cooldowns, trying to make sure that Kjarnan is not comfortable on the top side. And honestly, Roccat just seemed to be holding on at this point. I don't know really what's left for them to do.
Yeah, and that situation, you can see what Ignar was going for. Throws out the hook to try and catch the flash, you know, predict that if you get it 1 time out of 10, it's going to look amazing. The rest of the 9 times looks like just throwing a hook at nobody that's there, but certainly Kjarnan didn't end up using his flash, saw the direction of the hook just in time. Dodges out, but one day that play, like last week, will work out for Ignar.
Cacao stunned up. Lantern's there, Blast Cone's there. Does pull him into the arrow, though. That's a nice little bit of bonus damage from Kjarnan. And this is interesting because when we looked at the Misfits stats, when we looked at their games last week, this was what we expected, the strong early snowball coming in. However, what we didn't see last week was the incredibly proactive vision control. You can see wards lighting up the top side of Roccat, and Misfits clearly have a goal in mind here, but haven't quite been able to make an impact on this top lane turret yet.
And it's funny how the unicorns on the analyst desk actually echoed this sentiment, talking about how Misfits last week didn't really seem to snowball quite as heavily as you would expect with a lead. And this game, they've done a better job of it, even though it has kind of plateaued. They got their lead so early, it's difficult to press it. As soon as we get out of those standard situations where Ignar can just land a hook and somehow kill you in lane. So
yeah, the standard situations where Ignar just lands a hook, like every lane.
2v2 in
right?
2 minutes, yeah, exactly. So it's interesting. I want to see how Misfits push forward with this. Cacao wants himself a Mountain Drake. It'll be the second of the game. And again, Roccat putting a little presence into the top side jungle. It only amounts to a blue buff this time.
Cacao maybe getting the Mountain Drake, but Roccat weren't poised to get top side. I don't think they have enough knowledge to know where the opposition is to tempt that. So in the meantime, Cacao will get the dragon uncontested, traded in the end for a blue, and a bit of vision control on the side of Roccat. Not quite ideal. Mountain Drake not too potent quite yet.
Roccat actually just realized they still could have done something top lane because of how Power of Evil showed up on a ward late in that exchange. They weren't sure where he was at first, thought perhaps he could have been coming top with Hans Sama and Ignar, and as soon as he showed up, it was after the recalls from Roccat. They were already out of the lane, so couldn't really push that advantage. And now Ignar's going roaming with Hans Sama again. They're looking for some presence around this mid tower, but got to clear out that vision control first.
Roccat just, you know, doing what they have to in this case, and it's not on Roccat anymore to make the proactive plays. It feels like it's on Misfits, and we mentioned this already, but 2K gold advantage for Misfits. It's been that way since 7 minutes. They've been able to grow this lead. They have been able to find anything else. All these leads coming out of early laning, all these leads coming out of the first tower. Yes, they have some dragons as well, but when are we going to see this grow? When are we going to see Misfits take some proactive action here?
I think the hidden value in the dragons is a little more significant, especially that Mountain Drake. The Cloud Drake is nice. It allows, you know, Ignar to roam from lane to lane a little bit faster, but I'm kind of with you that we started so flashy and now we've kind of dipped. That I'm eager to see more hooks come out. Bot lane, the top laners are still doing the same thing.
We check in every once in a while to make sure that they're
same.
still not doing any damage to each other. And surprise, they're still not doing any damage to each other. But it's to mix it up, because really it feels like you got Alphari and Foxy doing their little dance on the bottom side, and everyone else trying to figure out how to coordinate around top.
We're going to reach a point where Misfits are going to have to stretch a little bit to try and get their engages. It's one of the hallmarks of having Thresh as a support, as opposed to some of the other kind of engage or pick style supports, where you have to go a little deeper. Cacao going to have to start jumping in with Alphari's shield on him rather than looking for Thresh hooks. It becomes a little difficult, but Misfits do have enough long-range poke. They have Syndra stun, they have Hansama to use the W as well, so there's enough to do it. But they're certainly going to have to start reaching for fights rather than kind of Roccat having them come towards them. So it's going to be this interesting situation post 20 minutes where Roccat don't really want to fight. Misfits have to reach for them. So there's this standoff that is going to occur, which means this game's going to slow very much like it has done.
Yeah, it's interesting too, because you mentioned, I mean, a lot of tools potentially to get picks, but a lot of them requiring that setup. Really, it feels like waiting for Hansama to land that deadly flourish before they can get the follow-up CC, because the hook, you know, pretty easy to sidestep, kind of a mind game risk. And it's a similar story with Scatter the Weak from Power Evil, which seem to be the two big tools to get a pick started here on the side of Misfits. Although Cacao quickly approaching level 11, maybe he'll upgrade those wings and we'll see him and Alphari tag team their way into the back line. Could be Maxlor in trouble, just a flash out.
A lot of respect. Maxlor playing on the very defensive side, which is the right thing to do when behind on this kind of setup. Can't afford to get picked off there, otherwise that would risk the mid tower. But here's one of the real...
Oh. I feel for you, Ignar. I too have tried to flash the Bard binding.
I was going to say, here's one of the real strengths of Corki, is it's almost impossible to push him out of mid lane. You can either just clear the waves out, and unless you're about to get dived, just back yourself away, pick up the package, run back to mid, clear it out, do the same again and again, until eventually your opponents have to throw everything mid or win a fight before they can get the tower. So certainly that's a sticking point for Misfits. And they won't really gain too much ground.
We can say a lot about the mid lane, but one thing that's going well for Betsy is the CS. 206 has now completed the Triforce as well, so he's sitting pretty comfortably. While bot lane may have been a pretty rough spot for them, at this point it does feel like it's starting to balance out. The later and later we go into the game, the less and less the gold lead on the side of Misfits means. And look, some tanks.
Yep. Faxi and Alphari still trading in the bottom lane. People will probably be a little surprised if you don't watch LCK of just how much damage Corki does post-Triforce, post-Infinity Edge, if that is the build that Betsy is going.
Or the Gunblade too. We've seen so many Corkis just kind of 80 carry flashes into them, Corki kills them immediately, because the raw damage output on that champion is absolutely terrifying.
Yeah, it's huge. LCK have been using it to such a good advantage in so many matchups that it's a very safe mid laner for the most part. That's why we're seeing it come out again. Good roaming potential as well once you get the package. You basically just Q, ult with the big rocket and then auto summon and they die. Or they have to flash out and use all the summoners to get away.
Yep. Of course, word has just come in from the EU LCS stats team that this is in fact the highest CS at 24 a mid laner for Betsy. So, the gold lead may not be in their favor, but the accolades are, and the flash for Hansama is not.
We did. Nice little attempt. Was trying to catch him in that range where you can't flash really out of Bard ult. Hansama even managing to just move far enough through with those swiftness boots that he could flash out of the very edge of the Bard ult, but certainly that was a nice attempt at a Roccat. They're making a few plays every now and again to try and get something. Hasn't been all that often, but certainly glad to see them still trying.
And it's 20 minutes, and honestly, 2K isn't a huge deal at this stage of the game. We can see the differences in itemization pretty small relatively across the board. Interestingly enough, Maxlor fully committing to the damage output here on the side of the Elise as we see a pretty aggressive build coming in. Yeah,
it's a fairly aggressive build when you look at it. That Haunting guys after. We'll see what he ends up doing with that. It's high damage. There's only really Alphari as a tank. I mean, Thresh gets a little bit tanky later on in the game, but certainly Maxlor can offer some damage to go with that. Cacao opting obviously for the damage edge with Kha'Zix.
Yeah, no tank Kha'Zix quite yet.
Not anymore.
In the meta.
After that damage reduction got taken off his ultimate 2 years ago.
To be fair, he still built full damage. You just could tank anything because that was...
that was silly.
You know, League of Legends, they mix it up sometimes. Sometimes Kha'Zix is a full tank without building tank. Sometimes when Nocturne's released, he's, you know, full tank and still does a ton of damage. It can be frustrating.
And sometimes, you know, Poppy builds full tank and kills the entire team, and looks like Warwick's going to do the same thing.
Come on, that's always been that way. Poppy's
that's fine. I'm
that's
excited.
the Poppy special.
I'm excited for Warwick because Warwick's going to be Poppy 2.0, but actually kill things really quickly. So waiting to see when Warwick is available.
I'm ready.
Still not.
Oh, moving forward. Maxlor get caught out. We reminisce on the past, and Misfits are looking towards the future as they cut down Maxlor and now make their way to the top side. They're ready to get more out of this. Ignar's moving up as well, and Betsy gonna have to stop worrying about the CS here and start worrying about your own life. But the team will back off in the end.
Maxlor this time with no flash, caught out on that ward as he tried to come across from mid lane the short way. Kianan, half health in the mid lane against the Jhin.
No one there to block it. Flash out. Cacao comes over the wall. Oh, gets it in the end. Doesn't even need to flash, but gets it anyway. Misfits now moving into the mid lane turret, and they are tearing Roccat apart.
Misfits so confident in the fact Kianan was absolutely dead that Hansama didn't even want to fire the rest of his ults to pick up the kill. Just kind of cancels it, goes, okay, I'll push the wave. We'll end up taking mid tower from it. And Betsy wasn't able to beat mid lane in time to defend against that, as he was pushing back top side. So Roccat, just a couple of little mistakes again, giving away so much ground over to Misfits. Now with 2 Mountain Drakes and an Infernal Drake up next, it's going to be catastrophic anytime Roccat lose 1 or 2 people, because it's going to turn into towers, barons. All of this is just going to snowball heavily in favor of Misfits.
Right now, however, it is Vision. You can see the jungle of Roccat once again lit up, but Misfits may have backed their members off too quickly here because Betsy is moving in to take down the tower.
Ignore wants it.
I get excited every time. They're miles away, and I'm like, he's got a plan. They're going to flash into it. Ignar knows. He can see the future.
He's against a champion that has, like, Valkyrie, Flash. He's going to get him.
Champion is not even in range, and I'm like, this hook might land. Technically impossible.
You miss every hook you don't throw, which is why you should throw it on cooldown, because you might just hit someone, right? That's how Thresh works. Crepo somewhere is just like, oh god.
Please stop talking about support champions. Please, just stop. Moving forward, though, you can see, not going to see the IE from Corki quite yet, although he is starting to work towards it. No Gunblade this time around. The BF Sword comes out, but Jhin already having the IE in addition to the Youmuu's Ghostblade. And honestly, Harnan struggling a little bit here on this Varus. Just got bits and pieces alongside that Ghostblade.
Yeah, not much to speak of, but Kianan still, if you can get a little bit of time in fights, a couple of autos, proc his passive, and, you know, take out the Blight stacks as well. Varus is another champion that has a massive amount of damage if he gets in range to deal it. Certainly this way of building as well. We used to see Varus in the mid lane rely heavily on poke. It was more about the piercing arrow. This time, it's more about the passive that comes on those Blight stacks, and then proccing the attack speed passive off Living Vengeance in fights. You just end up auto-attacking at such a fast rate by the end of the fight. You kind of kill everything.
And so much variance in the builds as well. Edge of Night combined with the Youmuu's, a lot of lethality coming in against a lot of people not building armor. So it does make a decent amount of sense, but not going to have that attack speed to synergize with the Varus passive, unfortunately. And, you know, no Tear of the Goddess, old school Varus mid lane build that we did see come out in our previous series on the AD carry. Ignar, though, gets the setup. Maxwell going to get popped, and down he goes immediately. Ignar caught out on the backside. Betsy's the one in trouble, though. Cacao is hungry for blood. Stealth up, walk away. Out comes the curtain call. Wadid going to cancel it. Hansama not going to make it out in time. Misfits find another pick here.
It may very well have been a Wadid cancel on the earlier exchange as well when we saw that curtain call drop. But you highlighted the build from Maxlor early on. Not really a lot of tank stats to speak of. This is a fairly fast Baron as well. Attempt. Oh, Faxi.
Hansama knocked out. They have to look for a fight here. Poppy is in the pit. Who's going to get it in the end? Kha'Zix does grab it. Foxy now in trouble. Jarnan going to go down on the backside. Doesn't even get Ignar. Foxy flashed to safety, double kill drops for Power of Evil, and this is disaster for Roccat.
Overall, 4 for 0, plus a Baron going Misfits' way. Maxlow took so much damage already. Hansama over the wall. One auto did so much. Betsy can't survive from it either. And Misfits clear calls from it as well. They end up going towards the Baron straight away, giving no time over to Roccat to set up for anything. And it looked to maybe be the kind of area where Faxi maybe can clear the Baron pit, stop them with their attempt at least, and end up getting something by denying them. But Faxi can't do enough. Power of Evil kills Woodid. And from there, the Baron's down. Misfits don't even lose their support, who's got more than 100 health still at the end of that fight. It has been all Misfits all game long.
And this is what we were wondering coming into the series. How would these teams change and adapt at the first series we saw them? We wanted more from Maxlor. We didn't get it. But what did we get from Misfits? And it's absolute dominance as Pop goes to Corki. Maxlor's back on his way in. He goes up. He's going to go right back down as Hansama goes on a rampage. And this is just Misfits cleaning up, taking down Roccat one step at a time. It was a slow and patient mid-game, but now that they got the Baron buff in their back pocket, they're making it look all too easy.
Baron buff, 2 Mountain Drakes, 2 members of Roccat still in the respawn timers, and Misfits push right up for their first inhibitor. Kakao even stayed alive during that exchange. He dropped so low, got a bunch of health back, and ended up taking an Infernal Drake while his team took the rest of the base.
That's how you know you're winning a game. When people don't need to be present when you siege the base. They can do other things. They can take their time. Once again, this is just so disastrous.
Kakao jumps right into Corki. So does Power of Evil. So Kakao then follows up in this fight. Maxlor nearly ends up getting the kill on him, but not quite enough. And Kakao has just been playing so aggressively in this match. All of Misfits have. Apart from that 5-minute stint where they kind of went
If we
top.
ignore the 5 to 10 minutes where they danced around top and didn't kill each other.
Bad.
But I mean, we look at this. There's 1 turret for Roccat, but there's 0 kills.
Yeah.
This is 10-0 in the favor of Misfits. This is almost a perfect game coming out from them. And we were critical of it being a little bit slower, but it's working for Misfits. And there has not been a single chance, it feels like, for Roccat to come back.
And the last 2 fights, the significant catches in it isn't actually Maxlow. It's on Betsy. Because Betsy now at the Infinity Edge point alongside that Trinity Force theoretically has enough damage to deal with most people. The only one he's really going to struggle with is likely Alfari, who has Magic Resist, even has himself a ZZ Rock Portal to go alongside it. But Roccat need that damage to come out. In both fights, Betsy's died before the fight's ever begun. Power of Evil.
Foxy wants to start something. Power's going to get chain stunned, but in goes to Shen. Tempered Fate. We get a brief break. Everyone goes golden, but Foxy goes down. Now moving forward, Betsy backing off, retreating to that tier 2 tower. Out comes the curtain call. Maxwell looking for the flash. The sidesteps, the fancy footwork has to come through. One more bullet, gonna connect. Hansama goes down. Betsy quick to follow. Misfits, low health bars across the board. Hansama and Alfari look healthy in the end, and it's all too easy.
Unfortunate timing on some aspects of that fight, so they go aggressive. Looked like they caught Power of Evil out. Then comes Woodid's ultimate. Right as Betsy was trying to land the damage. Phosphorus Bomb was absorbed by the golden targets. Nobody took the damage, even though they were stacked, and Misfits just turned the fight again in their favor because of this heavy, heavy lead.
And it's not 2K anymore, it's 12K. It's 4 dragons backing them up, and there's really nothing left here for Roccat in this game. At this point, what do you do as Roccat? I mean, are you planning for next game? Do you have to come back and focus for an opportunity to win this one? What is left? Because this super minion is really irritating.
Basically taking your Nexus Tower at 30 minutes. Honestly, there's not too much in this game Roccat can do without Misfits making a catastrophic mistake. This was a nice attempt, but then you're playing against a Shen. Ignar even hits a hook onto Maxlord, who ends up taking like half of his health damage already. So you saw Betsy not getting the damage out. And despite Hyuna being on the bot side of the fight, getting the ultimate down onto Power of Evil, Misfits just come up through the fight, avoid the Varus, and suddenly there's no more damage for Roccat that is actually present in the fight, and there's nothing more they can do.
That's a ZZ Rot. Doesn't work quite as well for split pushing. In fact,
Look at that Thresh damage.
that minion doesn't even make it to the tower.
Look at the Thresh damage. Thresh out-damaged 2 of his team.
Power of Evil was, to be fair,
He was
chain stunned
Yeah,
into a wall for about 5 seconds. So
it was less about Power of Evil, more about the Thresh damage. Just gets into the fight.
pretty impressive. And this is not the proto-belt Ignar that I thought we might see with this much damage coming out. This is just classic Thresh. Another damage on that Flay passive. Landing the hooks. Curtain Call goes out. Gonna get canceled immediately.
Yeah. That's one thing that's been working well for Roccat. They've been canceling Curtain Call a lot, but it hasn't helped him.
Yeah, smart pick coming in. Have seen a few Jins in Korea build Edge of Night simply to deal with that counter pick. Just have a reliable spell shield for when you want to ult, but Hans Sama not too worried about it. QSS, of course, not an item that will help against that Bard.
Yeah. But you know what does help him a lot? The like near 4 items that he has, which means if anybody tries to actually get him after the Bard ult, he kind of blows him up, and then everybody else keeps him alive too.
If he gets the fire off,
that's painful.
Betsy makes it out. Wadid does not make it in, and Foxy's all alone on the backside. Does get power beat on the wall. That's a lot of damage, but they get the shutdown in the end. Foxy now trying to keep this fight going. Roccat maybe can find a way back in. Maxor, they're focusing down on Alfari, but they're blocking so much the damage. Alfari now set to fall. Kakao in the back line, maybe looking for the reset. Stealths up, walks out, exhaust drops off. Hans Sama now dominating. Faxi makes his way in the back line. In goes Kakao, double kill. Misfits are too far ahead, and nothing that Roccat does matters in the end. Kakao stunned up. Misfits dominating the map.
And look at the base, like, Roccat may even just lose.
This is it. Misfits just gonna take it. Winion's a little bit too strong. And while the team fight rages, Minions doing their due diligence and taking the game in the end.
That was a very impressive performance from both Hans Sama and Ignar. And honestly, all of Misfits, but you look at how that game started in their favor, was in that bot lane. Hans Sama gets a big auto off, then a hook onto Hyanan from Ignar, and they take the kill at level 2 and never look back. That was such a good game out of the Misfits with that lead.
And for me, when you're Roccat, I feel like the first thing you have to look at is what went wrong in that early game. How did these hooks happen? Hyanan, are you not comfortable against the Thresh? Do we need to ban it? Because all your game plan kind of falls apart when your lanes start losing that early in the game.
I wonder whether the analyst desk will take another look back at that first sequence, because it's the kind of thing where maybe Hyanan was a second or two early stepping forward into the second or third minion wave where that hook has come out already. But honestly, we see 2v2 kills so rarely. We see Thresh so rarely as well in the meta that Hyanan, just that misplay in the lane just, blew everything
Every
apart.
once in a while, I mean, mid lane kills, solo kills. Sometimes we expect that when people get over aggressive, when people get caught out. But bot lane 2v2s we never see. We expect TPs to be coming in. No one wants to fight in bot lane because there's so many tools to interrupt that. There's junglers that could be around at any moment. Ignar doesn't care. Yeah,
Ignar really doesn't care. I mean, you look at the end fight as well. They thought that they maybe had the right setup to the fight, catch the mid laner, get a lot of damage down. Suddenly Kakao jumps in and everybody loses all their health. So, Roccat, they're going to have to regroup heavily for this second game.
Yeah, I think at the end of the day, they had some good moments. They had 1 or 2 comeback attempts, but for the most part, that was Misfits 100% cleaning house, and they just need to reevaluate. I don't think I can even say the pick and ban because of how disastrous the early game was, but they need to figure out what their strategy is coming in against these guys, because you have to shut Ignar down. You have to shut Kakao down.
You really do.
And it's got to be so overwhelming to play against, but that's enough from us. Misfits has gone 1 up in this best of 3 over Roccat. Let's send it back over to the analyst desk to take a look at how those things transpired.
Thank you very much, guys, and I hear you guys touching on the pick and ban, and if that could be a solution. And we do want to take a look at that. Xerxes, you had specifically a couple of things to say about the Elise pick on the side of Roccat. You don't like it that much.
Yeah, I'm not a big fan of Elise because she's only good in the early game, but if you don't snowball the early game, you're useless in mid and late game. And I'd rather have Ivern. Ivern is really good against Kha'Zix, and at level 6, you pop Daisy, you're not isolated anymore, you have the shields, and you scale really good into late game with Redemption, Roccat, Arden, everything. It's really good against Kha'Zix.
All right, so that's not something we want to see. Exile, something else in general. Did you like the Roccat come aside from the Elise?
I think that draft overall, they gave basically 3 power picks, Kha'Zix, Syndra, and Shen, and they only responded to it with picks that are mediocre into it. Corki doesn't do that great into Syndra, and Poppy for Shen is not the trade you want, and also Elise for Kha'Zix. So I think they got actually quite heavily outdrafted.
Yeah, I think the biggest problem for me is also the order which they're picking. So for them, Virus is considered like a super high tier pick, so they want to trade that for Kha'Zix. But then they go Elise right after, where it's like you're not doing anything here because you're now already picking a jungler. They already have a jungler. You're picking a jungler also no one wants anyway. Yeah. So you're not getting any value there. That should have been Syndra. because there were mid lane bans in here. If that had been Syndra, it would have been much easier for them in the mid lane, and they could then last pick the Elise if they really wanted it. And also later on in the draft, when we saw the Poppy first pick after banning Jace and Rumble, you have last pick. Why are you banning Jace and Rumble? You can last pick and counter top lane with those picks. You ban them and first pick your top laner, and then you last pick Bard, and you just... There's no value in the last picks on red side at all in this game.
We see grabs there, of course. The coach maybe having to manage a thing or two going into game 2. Let's take a look at Misfits then. We are happy with their comp. They first picked that Kha'Zix, and we know that Kakao can be absolutely lethal on it. But in the mid game, though, what did the Misfits do with their advantage?
Well, so this replay here, it's starting post. We just want to kind of set it up real quickly. We want to show the Misfits, once they had honestly a fairly large advantage, they didn't use it for such a long time. So if you just roll the replay, all you guys have to notice is how Misfits are just running between top lane and mid lane over and over and over. Exile, what should they be doing here?
Right now, they should just go into mid lane, push out mid lane together to get a man advantage, because Corki has to hold mid lane, right? And then they invade top side vision, because they want to get the top lane to it eventually. And just clear vision, set up vision, so they can eventually rotate first, and then get the top lane to it. But what they're doing is they're just like running around, not resetting at the same time. So they lose pressure and they lose vision as well. And this leads to them losing the top lane to it, actually, when they're even ahead.
Yeah, they did get the mid lane tower, but again, they traded when they had a 4K goal lead or something, and it gave a small chance for Roccat to come back. But at the same time, Rocket's composition needed so much time to scale in, and we talked about like Shen against double AD carry, the value he brings in here. As a jungler, if you are playing like Kakao's role here, and your team has to push this advantage, is it up to you as well to know exactly where to be on the map? And do you make some calls as well, saying like, we gotta push it top?
I think you are the one supposed to like make the calls, and you have you got the lead in the early game, so you can just invade, and it's really good with Kha'Zix. You can snowball it further, but I feel like he doesn't use the snowball that good, because you can invade topside jungle, you push Elise out of the jungle, and he has nothing to farm. He's forced to go bot side jungle or just lose farm. And if he goes bot side jungle, you go with TP Shen 5 versus 4 topside.
But luckily for the side of Misfits, Roccat also didn't really manage to make that much happen. And in the end, Misfits also get their hands on this fight.
Maxlow had some really weird moves in this game here, where now he's hugging the wall, moving in without any vision on the other side. And that kind of results in that winning team fight for Misfits. They're already super far ahead, but this is just them creating a pick. We can just actually roll the clip. Not sure if you guys noticed anything that's worth highlighting here. To me, it was kind of like a very easy pick from Ignore. Great play from him, obviously.
Pretty good hook.
But then they just kind of cleaned it up.
I guess they wanted to fight because they have the quirky package, but you are still behind. And I think at this point, you should just stall the game as much as you can and wait for them to start the bear. Maybe you can 50-50 or you can stop it. But getting caught like that, it's like the worst thing that can happen.
And I know it seems weird maybe for viewers that we were criticizing Misfits a little bit before in a game where they win like that 16 kills to 1. They were ahead in the entire game because Ignore was so good in the bot lane on Thresh. But it was simply because there were some mistakes they can work on. It's something they've talked about themselves they really want to improve on as a team, because we know the individual very good. And despite having that mistake, there was nothing positive to mention about Roccat at all. Honestly, in this game here, I felt like Misfits were just kind of handed such an easy game for them to play.
Yeah, well, you're dropping the truth bombs, and I think we can agree with you after watching that game. We'll see what happens. One thing that the casters also said, Ignore, again, fantastic performance on Thresh, and he's setting up so many things. He is able to do it on other champions as well, so that's definitely someone to look at.
Do you ban Thresh? I feel like they had the chance to actually ban it in this game in the second phase.
Yeah, they should have probably against Ignore.
And then they banned Malzahar also.
Well, Misfits banned Malzahar and Zyra themselves, so there you go.
Well, we've got the game plan. Let's see if they do it in the next game. And remember to stick around after this series for the post-game lobby, where we will be breaking down what we expected from the EU LCS teams versus how they actually performed. But next, we'll have Game 2 between Misfits and Roccat. Don't go anywhere.
Snare goes in, Hjarnan might go down here, ignites burning. Hans Sama, dancing grenade. Ignore though gets the setup. Maxwell gonna get popped, and down he goes immediately. Ignore caught out on the backside. Benzie's the one in trouble though. Kakao is hungry for blood. Stealth up, walk away. Exhaust drops off. Hans Sama now dominating. Baxi makes his way in the backline. In goes Kakao. Double kill. Misfits are too far ahead, and nothing that Roccat does matters in the end.